I've put together a list of the best shots from the Players Tour Championships, but how hard is it to play these shots in the real world? So to find out, I'm going to be playing this, and even attempting to play this, and giving you the chance to vote for one of these as your shot of the championships, as well as discussing why John Higgins might have broken snooker. But of course, to find out how difficult all of these shots are to play, I'm going to first need to have a go at all of them.
And that means trying to recreate these shots as accurately as possible in the fewest attempts. And that all starts with Judd Trump.
Behind in the frame in a close match against Stuart Bingham, Judd is faced with a pressure pot, but he actually goes on to win the frame from here. This shot requires a lot less backspin than you'd think. You almost have to punch it in while striking the ball nearly above centre. I would have been happy to get this in around 5 attempts, so to get it in 2 means we're off to a really good start. Junhui was involved in a really close match against Ronnie O'Sullivan, during which he managed to pull off this impressive and really accurate pot down the cushion.
On a snooker table, these shots are incredibly tough, and if you just so much as clip the side cushion, the ball simply won't go in the pocket.
And the faster you have to play this shot, the more difficult it is, as it becomes less likely that the pocket will accept the ball. And unfortunately, I can't play it slowly.
Didn't actually expect to get it that quick.
But now on to Ronnie O'Sullivan, who, despite being completely outplayed by John Higgins in the final, still managed to make some big breaks and pull out some flashy shots, and this was one of them. To get the reds open, you need to screw the cue ball round 2 cushions with reverse side here. My first attempt was really close, but unfortunately I just clipped the red to the side of the pack. But I need the backspin on the cue ball to grip the cloth just the right amount as it arcs its way to the first cushion. And on my 4th attempt, I just about got it right.
That was actually a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be. The main problem there was the pace of the shot, because a little bit too hard or too soft, and I missed the reds altogether.
Jack Lisowski may have found himself completely whitewashed by Ronnie O'Sullivan had it not been for this one excellent pot. You can actually see Ronnie nodding in the background at how impressive this shot was. What you have to remember with a shot like this is with enough attempts I'm bound to get it eventually, but to play it perfectly first time is really tough.
Well, I guess I just did it perfectly then.
In his 6-0 win against Mark Selby, John Higgins never gave Mark too much of a chance, and nowhere is that demonstrated more clearly than with this shot. In a lot of trouble, he manages to find his way out and get the cue ball completely safe. John had recently been trying to make small improvements to his technique, and they've clearly been working. Even though it's unlikely he's going to carry this form into future tournaments, if he does, the chances are he's going to be completely unstoppable. His break building, safety, and even his long potting were more than a match for anybody he came up against. So even though it's unlikely, it'd be interesting to know if he continued to play this well, if you thought anybody could actually beat him. Anyway, this shot requires me to come around 3 cushions with a small amount of right-hand side, and I need to get the weight absolutely perfect here, which means landing right on top of the red.
Yeah, happy with that. I guess technically we can see this red that goes in the middle pocket, but we're not going to worry about that little detail. Let's just take a second to find Jensen, who's in Kudelstadt in the Netherlands. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that horribly wrong.
Neil Robertson and his lockdown hair are back, and maybe unusually for one of these shots, they're playing a safety shot, but they're playing it really well. Getting the cue ball tight in behind the brown here definitely isn't going to be easy. I need to catch the red thin here with right hand side to spin the cue ball around 3 cushions and get it in behind the brown. Obviously I caught the red far too thick here. And it seemed like a really difficult shot to play until I realised that you more or less just had to play the perfect break-off, because the cue ball's close to the D and the red that I'm hitting is near enough in the same place as it would be for a break-off, and that's roughly where I want to get the cue ball on that shot. The fact that the cue ball was a little bit further away made it very slightly harder to judge, as did putting the balls back in the right place every time, as I seemed to move them all every time I got it wrong.
Even though there's not a lot of risk involved with these safety shots, getting the cue ball in behind there is incredibly difficult, so I'm pretty pleased with that.
Now for another shot from Jack Lisowski, this time against Martin Gould. If you're attempting a pot down the other end of the table like that, normally you wouldn't be trying to get on the black, but Jack manages to get on the black absolutely perfectly. This wasn't exactly an easy pot, especially as you have to play it with a fair amount of left-hand side, but when I got it, it seemed to be a natural angle, because the cue ball automatically came round towards the black, and happily I seemed to get the pace of the shot absolutely right here.
That actually wasn't too difficult, but honestly I would never have thought of playing the shot like that in the first place.
Everybody thought that Mark Williams was completely snookered here, but as it turned out he could see just enough of the red he needed to win the frame to be able to pot it, but it's not even like it was a straightforward pot. This one doesn't require you to do anything with a cue ball, it's just really difficult to be able to strike the red thin enough, especially from this sort of distance. Your brain won't let you hit it thin enough sometimes, so I was happy enough to get it pretty quickly.
It's hard to know if I set that up 100% right, but either way I was happy to get it in just 3 attempts. Before I try another one of John Higgins' shots, let's just find Dmitry, who's from Perm, Russia, which is there.
Against Kyron Wilson, John Higgins found himself a little bit out of position, but that wasn't going to stop him, as he played this Judd Trump-like shot, spinning the cue ball all the way around the table and back for the red. Even though potting the black isn't too difficult on this shot, finding a path round the table for the cue ball definitely is, and if you strike the cue ball only a tiny bit too hard as I just have here, you end up catching a jaw and completely ruining the shot. But eventually I seem to get the pace and the spin just right and get the cue ball to come round the table exactly as John's did, and I think I got this exactly where his shot finished.
What was actually quite clever there was the way that John used topspin to make the cue ball arc around the red.
Unsurprisingly for the tournament he had, we've got another shot from John Higgins. Here he manages to screw the cue ball directly into the reds off the yellow, leaving himself on a choice of balls. This shot is all about delaying the backspin just the right amount, and on my first attempt it gripped too well. On my second, however, I got it about right and split the reds nicely. But is it possible to control this?
This one was all about getting the bounce right. When you strike down on the cue ball, you actually make it take longer to grip the cloth and the cue ball jumps wider. If you play the shot flatter, the cue ball actually comes straight back at you. And I had to judge that absolutely perfectly there to get the cannon. Follow the link in the description to vote for your shot of the championship, and I should be announcing the winner next week at some point.
But until then, if you want to see if I can recreate shots from past tournaments, have a look at these 2 videos. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.